This session will introduce you about the simulation of the utilities. Utilities are the services used to support a main process. In the context of process engineering, it mainly focuses on the heating and cooling energy as well as the power supplied for the equipment to properly function. After the raw materials are consumed in the process, the utilities make up the most significant variable cost in the process. In ASPEN Plus, you can use a utility block to calculate the energy consumption of individual unit operations, energy costs, and how much utility of each type is used by the processes. You can define the energy content, price, and greenhouse gas contribution for each type of process utilities. The available utility types in ASPEN Plus are as follows: coal, electricity, gas, oil, refrigerant, steam, water, and general type of utilities, which user can specify the component. To perform the utilities calculation in ASPEN Plus, there are 3 simple steps to follow. First, you need to add all utilities supplied to the process by specifying utility types, heating values, and price of the utilities. Second, you need to assign the created utilities to any block where duty and power is either specified or calculated, except M heat X and R block. Whereas power utilities such as pump, crusher, and ESP or dry electrostatic precipitators are generally limited to electric utilities. And the last step is to run the simulation and view the utility results. You can view the calculated utility usage for each unit operation, which uses the utility on the results form of the utility block. Please also note that the flow sheeting operations, such as design specification, can also access the utility results, such as total usage and total cost, as the utility walls or utility variables. Apart from the setup of utility types, ASPEN Plus will also provide you an option to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions of the process and utilities in terms of CO2 equivalent of global warming potential, or the GWP. There are several standards to report CO2 equivalents of streams for the users to select in ASPEN Plus. So please go to the Setup, Calculation Options, and Calculation Sheets, which will let you to select which of the standards to be used for reporting CO2 equivalent of the stream. The standards available to select are IPCC SAR 1995, IPCC AR4 2007, or US EPA 2009. On the same sheet, you can also specify a carbon fee or carbon tax which your company pays in terms of the currency per mass of CO2 equivalent emitted. Once you have set up the standard to report the greenhouse gas emissions in terms of CO2 equivalent, you can also specify the fuel types in each utility block. The CO2 emission factor for fuels can be selected from the following data sources: European Commission Decision 2007/589/EC, the United States Environmental Protection Agency Rule E95711. Or the user can directly specify an emission factor for the utility by themselves, and also the user can specify a fuel composition, which is assumed burned, given that the net heating value of the components and all carbon atoms are converted to emitted CO2. In each case, the CO2 emissions are calculated based on the energy use. After running the simulation, there are several ways to view the results. You can see the results balance sheet of each unit operation block. This sheet displays the CO2 equivalents of the combined feed streams, combined product streams, and net production. For blocks which can use utilities, the emissions from the utilities and the total emissions from net production and utilities are also shown. You can also use the results form of each utility block to see the CO2 equivalents emitted by each type of utilities in each unit operation block. Each block also reports these CO2 equivalents in its own results form together with the other utility results. The result summary, operating cost and utilities cost summary sheet displays the fuel types, emission factors, and emission rate for each utility. On the result summary and models form, you can use the utilities tabs in each model type to view the production or utility emission rate for each block. You can also use the result summary CO2 emissions form to view the consolidated results for CO2 equivalents. Here, you can find the net stream of CO2 equivalents and utilities CO2 equivalents for each hierarchy and for the entire plant. Also, the net carbon fees or tax for those emissions, and also see the CO2 equivalents for each feed and product stream of the hierarchy or the plant. These results are also appear in the report file. So let's go to the tutorial to practice using the utility feeders.